Yo guys, it's Kyle coming at you from Bane's Film Reviews. I just saw Captain America Brave New World, directed by Julius Onah, starring Anthony Mackie, Danny Ramirez, and Harrison Ford. This is sort of a follow-up to the original Captain America trilogy, but it's also even more so a follow-up to the 2008 Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton. A lot of a lot of the story stems from what happened back in 2008, the second installment in this now massive MCU, and I really appreciated that. This film tied up a lot of loose ends. It touched on a lot of things that really hadn't been mentioned in like 17 years, and it was really nice to revisit a time in the MCU that wasn't incredibly convoluted. It was still in the baby stages of this massive universe, and but it still had a direction, and it was nice to be able to reminisce and that bit of nostalgia to come back, and I really appreciated that. I did not have high hopes for Captain America Brave New Worlds. I thought that it was going to be a massive letdown compared to the original trilogy, and really there's no way that it could ever live up to that. Chris Evans is Captain America, and as much as I love Anthony Mackie as an actor, and as much as I loved him in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I like the idea of him, taking up this mantle as a new Captain America, there's no way he can quite live up to that. And I know that's not really fair to him, but it's simply a fact. So, I also like that this film takes on a darker tone. It's something that we haven't really seen a lot lately, as Marvel has been looking into these lighter tones and taking a more comedic approach, even in the darker films. And the theme or the tone in this really felt something akin to what we got in Captain America: Winter Soldier, which to many is the best of that trilogy and one of the best films in the MCU. I don't quite subscribe to that idea, but I certainly understand what a spectacular film that is, not to mention that it's the Russo brothers' introduction into the MCU. So there are a lot of things that work really well. I love, again, the narrative that stems from a film that's 17 years old and ties up a lot of loose ends in that regard. It mentions things that happen in the Eternals, which is a film that we've basically forgotten that it exists up until this point. I don't really think that's a spoiler. That's something that has been seen numerous times in the trailers. But if that spoiled something, I apologize. I guess keep up. But again, we're touching on bits and pieces of lost MCU that I was starting to become worried that we'd never hear of again, but I'm glad that we did. Mackie is fantastic. He really is a brilliant actor. And he's given a film that is all his, for the most part. There are moments, with Harrison Ford that Harrison Ford outshines him, but that's not to detract from Mackie's ability. That's just to say that Ford is one of the best actors of his generation, and it's unfair, really, to other people that have to act opposite him. But Mackie certainly holds his own. I think he does a wonderful job. He doesn't try to be Chris Evans. He doesn't try to be that Captain America. He doesn't try to be something even close to that. He gets to be his own character, and I appreciate that. I was worried that this was really going to dive into this idea of wokeness and was really going to play on real life ideas and things that we're experiencing in the real world. It did not do that. While there are some inklings that maybe that's the direction that they had thought to go at one point, I know with a lot of reshoots, it's possible that this is one of the things that they thought long and hard about and went, no, we need to change this. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know, but I'm really glad that this is the direction that they went, not making it incredibly woke, not making it this racial and political spectacle that I really anticipated that it would be. We get that in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I think it's okay that we've now moved on from that. My issue stems from the fact that some of these things are a little shallow. I had mentioned the comedy before, and I think that Danny Ramirez's character, Joaquin, who is effectively the new Falcon in the MCU, he sort of doesn't get a lot to do. Yes, he gets to partake in some of the really well choreographed and really well shot action sequences, but he's the comic relief. It's a little unfair to him because it seems like he really has a good head on his shoulders and he really has a lot of talent, but he wasn't able to display that, I think, in a way that was fair to him. And then we have Giancarlo Esposito, who many know from shows like Breaking Bad. He's so freaking talented, and he shines brilliantly in every moment that he's on screen. But I think that they underutilize him. I think that he needed a little bit more screen time. He is part of a society, Serpent Society, that is not a super well-known villain organization within Marvel Comics. It's one that I had heard of, but only because I keep up on this stuff. But it's not one that I know a lot about. It's just something that I knew just from name. And I think that we should have waited to introduce Giancarlo Esposito into this universe, unless we're going to use him going forward. I don't know. But in this film, he is a bit underutilized. Then the dialogue sometimes is incredibly shallow. There are some lines that are just far too cliche, and Mackie's performance is hindered to a degree because of that. He can only do so much with what he's given. And again, while he's wonderful throughout, there are some of these one-liners that just don't work, and that's not his fault. But it does certainly detract from the character and from his performance and then from the film as a whole. I think that Brave New World has effectively set the MCU up for something a little more cohesive and linear going forward. And I think that we, as Marvel fans and comic book movie fans, should be excited about the future. I think that we've got bits and pieces that will tie into Thunderbolts going forward. I think my phone froze on me. I don't know what we heard. I don't know what we didn't hear. But anyway, so I think there are bits and pieces that will tie into Thunderbolts going forward. I think there are bits and pieces that will tie into films like Secret Wars and Doomsday. And I really think that this is the film that has now set the precedent going forward. We've had sort of this dark era of MCU where people are getting tired of it, and it's veering from this algorithm that had worked so well, and they're leaning heavily into this really comedic algorithm that isn't working as well as I think they had hoped, Kevin Feige and his constituents there. Brave New World, again, I think sets a precedent. Wonderful actors, and a very interesting storyline that ties up, again, some loose ends, some wonderful callbacks to the old MCU, and I think, again, we're setting things up going forward for a very bright future. Captain America Brave New World surprised me, being significantly better than I anticipated that it would be. But I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. And I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that. And I think that most MCU viewers will be happy with that. MCU fans will be happy with that. Again, I think the future is bright for the MCU. And, yeah. So until next time, peace.